What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you a Dogmatika Regenesis profile. That's right, a lot of you requested that the Dogmatika build be an official Dogmatika build and not just involve 3 Nadir Servant, a Maximus and an Ecclesia. So that's exactly what I've done. We are going to be utilising the ritual monsters for Dogmatikas, and we are going to be utilising more of their core cards being backed up by the Regenesis. Now, as I've mentioned in my previous version of this, what I really like about the Regenesis is the fact that it can become a 50% supporting engine or supporting deck for a lot of other decks, which is why you can consider stuff like Voiceless Voice. We've also done Mech Knights that I've done previously. Dogmatikas being another one. And then, of course, you do have Kashteras and Bestials and the more competitive versions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the profile, show you what we've got, give you a baseline of what you're going to be looking for if you're wanting to put a deck like this together, whether you are a fan of the Dogmatika deck itself or whether you are a fan of Regenesis and want to spice it up for a more casual locals. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So I'll take you through the Dogmatikas first. So for the Dogmatika rituals, we are playing the 1 Albazoa, the 1 White Relic and the 1 White Knight. Now, there is a bit of, not even a contrast on this one, but what you need to keep in mind is that the White Relic and the White Knight have the 2500 stats required for your reveals and to have on the field for the rest of your Regenesis monsters. Sadly, the Albazoa doesn't do that. In a normal Dogmatika ritual build, you would focus on more Albazoas, and that's when you open up the space to be able to play 3 of this card. In this one, we're trying to keep the balance down, and you really don't need to rely on it as heavily. This is still your best ritual monster, but what you're trying to do is there are multiple ways to get to your Albazoa, and at the base minimum, you have ways to get to your White Relic or your White Knight, reveal that in hand to summon down your Archfiend, and then straight away, you've got the 2500 on the field, and then these can either be fodder, or you can actually get them ritual summoned to the field. More times than not, your White Relic will be your more ideal one to summon because it lets you send one from the extra deck to the grave. That would then allow you to then set up your search of your White Knight to give you your 2500 in the hand should you need to. Or of course, you can get another ritual spell to then summon out your Dogmatika Albazoa as well. For our ideal normal summon of the deck, we are on 3 Dogmatika Ecclesia. The reason for this one is it will allow you to add a Dogmatika card from the deck to the hand, so straight away you can search out all the classic Dogmatikas in the form of your Maximus and your Fleur Delis, but then of course it can also open up the door to get your other Dogmatika cards, like your Dogmatika Matrix, which I'll talk about shortly because that card's just absolutely insane. As a last little option on this one, I do play the 1 Blazing Cartesia. Now, I'm not completely sold on this. It was just one of the ones that if you go through plays and you already hard open up the Ecclesia, you can work your way into or through a Despian Lulu Walif, which will allow you to summon a spellcaster that match its own attack from the deck. So rather than going for something like a Fleur Delis or rather than going for something else, you can actually go into a Cartesia. Now, the reason for this one is during your opponent's turn, unless you have the White Knight on the field, which just stops you going to the extra deck completely, or if you've activated code on the previous one as well, this would allow you to technically summon into a Grand Grignol, and then Grand Grignol can set up a Proskenion or of course a Lulu Walif depending on what you've gone through to get to it. You can play 2 Lulu Walif and I'll explain my extra deck when I get to it. But I thought this was kind of a cool alternative option. If you wanted to take it out, you can do that. I'll put the deck down to a baseline of 40. It's just something I wanted to trial out to see if I liked it or not. Then for the spell cards, Nadir Servant, like there's a reason this card isn't called like Dogmatika's Nadir Servant or Dogmatika's Servant because it'd just be crazy if it was that easily searchable. This is like one of your core cards. This is the card you want to protect by Droll as much as you possibly can. Keeping in mind that when you activate Nadir Servant, you're probably going to work your way into Droll territory because what you send wants to search or draw, and then what you end up searching off the back of your Nadir Servant would ultimately lead you to a search or a draw. So that's why you want to utilize the code from the Regenesis being your ideal card on this one, because this can then, during the draw phase, you don't get hit with Droll, can set you up the Archfiend, and then your Archfiend will search you out your Sage, and you summon down the Sage, and then it means your Nadir Servant is protected, and then the search for the back of those subsequent cards would also be protected. Not to mention also protecting a technical better version of Nadir Servant in this particular deck is your Dogmatika Matrix. So when this card is activated, you get to add a Dogmatika Ritual monster or a Dogmatika Ritual spell from the deck to your hand. Then if your opponent controls a monster, you get to add a Dogmatika card from the deck to the hand. Once per turn, if you control a Dogmatika Ritual monster, you can look at either player's extra deck and send a monster from it to the graveyard. If you were to play this correctly, there is the way to pretty much rinse out your opponent's entire extra deck, which is just absolutely disgusting, which I'll probably go back to in these ritual monsters now, just so you have a bit of an idea of what they all do, because I've remembered it's been a while since the ritual monsters were even actually considered. So your Relic of Dogmatika, you get to ritual summon this one with Dogmatika Cabaret, and if this card is ritual summoned, you get to target 2 face-up monsters on the field, make one of those monsters gain attack equal to the other monster's attack. Level 8 or higher Dogmatika monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle, and if a monster is specialed from your opponent's extra deck, except during the damage step, you get to look at your opponent's extra deck and send the monster from it to the graveyard. Your White Knight, you get to ritual summon this again with Dogmatika Calamity, and we are playing 2 different ritual spells, which you'll see shortly. You can't special summon monsters from the extra deck, period, while this card is on the field. And if your opponent activates a card or effect except during the damage step, you get to send a monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. And if you do, you look at your opponent's extra deck and then send one monster from it to the graveyard. This card gains attack equal to the combined attack of those monsters sent to the graveyard until the end of the turn. So again, when you're sending stuff like possibly Herald of the Arclight to search you out a follow-up, or you can send an Elder Entity Unts to give you a destruction on the field, a Garura for a draw, you've got loads of different options. And then your boss monster in the form of the Dogmatika Alba Zoa. So cannot be ritual summoned except with Dogmatika Calamity or another Dogmatika card effect. Dogmatika monsters you control are unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, and Link monsters. During your main phase, you can make your opponent choose and apply one of these effects. You, in the effects mentioned below, is referring to your opponent. For every 2 cards in your extra deck, so your opponent's extra deck, send 1 card from the hand or extra deck to the graveyard. So keeping in mind, you're going to want to use that effect if you're going first, which means they're going to have 15 in their extra deck, which means they need to send 7 cards from the hand or extra deck. So you're basically ripping away half of your opponent's extra deck. They will selectively choose those, so they're going to be getting rid of the less effective. But then when you're able to then back it up with a White Relic, a White Knight, or go for a Maximus, again, Maximus would then get rid of 2 more. You've got your Dogmatika Matrix, will let you cherry pick exactly what you want to get rid of, and if you do have a White Relic or a White Knight, again, you're going to be able to cherry pick exactly what you want to get rid of. Going second, the other effect of your Alba Zoa lets you return all Fusion, XYZ, Links, or Synchros you control to the extra deck. So again, it just basically clears your opponent's extra deck field back to the deck. And then the 2 ritual spells that we play is the 1 Dogmatika Calamity. So this card can be used to ritual summon any Dogmatika ritual monster. You must also tribute monsters from your hand or field whose total levels exactly equal the level of the ritual monster you want to ritual summon, or you send 1 monster from the extra deck to the graveyard whose levels equal the level of the ritual monster you want to summon. So you've got a 4, a 12, and an 8. It is a secondary effect on this one as well, that you are locked out of the extra deck after it resolves, so you can't special summon from the extra deck, which is absolutely fine. And then you've got the 1 Dogmatika Cabaret. So this one, again, allows you to ritual summon any Dogmatika ritual monster by using monsters from your hand or graveyard as material. You can summon it from the hand or graveyard. But you must also treat monsters from your hand or field and or banish Fusion or Synchro monsters from your graveyard whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster you want to ritual summon. Then if both White Knight and White Relic are on the field, you get to look at either your extra deck or your opponent's and send a monster from it to the graveyard. So again, another way to cherry pick to go through the graveyard. The idea is this one lets you ritual summon back from the grave, and it lets you use the graveyard as material to do so. You want to start with the Calamity, because Calamity will send from your extra deck first, which can then technically search out your second ritual spell, because you want to be able to send like your Herald of the Arclight to summon out your White Relic. So then you've already set up the ability to look at your opponent's extra deck, and then you're going to be able to use your Herald of the Arclight to either search out a ritual monster or another ritual spell, depending on what you need. And that's when you can get into your White Knight, which is the 2500 stats you're going to need to reveal for your Regenesis. So that's it for the entire Dogmatika lineup for this particular build. Moving on to the Regenesis. So pretty standard on the Regenesis lineup of 3 Archfiend. So reveal a monster in the hand with 2500 attack or defense to special summon this card. On normal or special, you get to search your deck for a Regenesis card. And the exact same for all of the Regenesis monsters is if they are in your graveyard during your opponent's turn because they were sent there during your opponent's turn, they add themselves back to the hand except Regenesis Lord. Off the back of Archfiend, we have Sage, which is your Omni-Negate. So you send another Regenesis card from the hand or field to the graveyard to negate any card effect that your opponent has activated. And you get to special summon it if a monster with an original attack or defense of 2500 is on the field. Regenesis Lord, you have to specifically banish a monster with 2500 original attack and defense. Which in this particular version, the only card you're going to have is your Archfiend, which is absolutely fine because once you've used your Archfiend to search, it just becomes fodder for either Sage or itself. You can only special summon it once per turn this way, and if it is special summoned, you get to set a Regenesis spell or trap from the deck. It gains 2500 attack during the battle phase, and if it attacks a defense position monster, you inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. We then have the One Warrior, so tribute this to then target a monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand. And then Dragon, tribute this to target one of your opponent's spell or traps and then banish it. And then everything apart from Lord has the effect that if it's in the graveyard during your opponent's turn and it was sent there that turn, it returns to the hand. Then play 3 Regenesis, so search out any of your Regenesis monsters. It does have a second effect to search out any monster that has specifically 2500 attack and defense, but you're only ever going to search out Lord in this particular build because nothing else is really going to do it. So you'll pretty much just constantly keep searching out a Regenesis monster anyway. Except the turn a card it was sent to the graveyard, you get to banish it from the graveyard to revive a Regenesis from the grave. And then 3 Regenesis Code, which is absolutely insane. Quick effect, or quick play spell card to be specific. Special summon a Regenesis monster from the deck, but you send it to the graveyard during your opponent's end phase, which is fine, because apart from Lord, you'll be able to add them back to the hand, and Lord can only be special summoned by banishing a monster with 2500 attack and defense, so you can't even cheat Lord out of the deck. On top of that as well, during the main phase, if this card is in the graveyard except the turn it was sent there, you get to banish it to then return or special summon back one of your banished Regenesis, which in a scenario would be the Regenesis Archfiend that you've banished off of the back of your Lord. And then finally, the 1 Regenesis Birth. So send a Regenesis monster from the deck to the grave as cost to then target a face-up monster your opponent controls and change it to face-down defense position. But during your opponent's turn only, you can send this card from the field to the graveyard to special summon as many Regenesis monsters as possible with different names from the hand, grave, and or banishment. But you send them to the graveyard during the end phase, which is absolutely fine because again, you'll just recur them back to the hand. So that's pretty much it for the Regenesis lineup. The final element of the deck is just some hand traps. So with this one, very simply, Ashes, Imperms, Chummies, and then the final card that I'm main decking to make it 41, but if you want to cut it down to 40, you can do, is the 1 Yugioh Schism. And you'd actually consider putting this in this side deck if you wanted to, but I kind of felt that it was one of the ones that if I'm able to set this up, or if I've already sent enough cards from the extra that I want to, the play behind Schism, and I'll show it to you now so everyone has an idea of how it works, is you would activate Nadir's Servant, wherever it may be. There we go. So this is on the assumption you've already got your Herald, you've already got your Ritual Monster, which is why this is a card that could be considered to go to the side deck instead. So step 1 would be activate Nadir's Servant. Step 2 would be to send your Shaddoll App Clone from the extra deck to the graveyard. As you resolve Nadir's Servant, you'd search out any of your Dogmatika cards that you need, and then your App Clone would then search you out Schism, and you would discard a card, which is absolutely fine, because by that point you should have a full hand of 4, 5 when you include the card you searched off Nadir. So what you have at this particular point is you've got Schism on the field with a Dark already in the graveyard in the form of the App Clone. All you need is another Dark to the graveyard, which if you searched out Maximus off of the back of Nadir's Servant is very easily done, because then what you would do instead is you could go Nadir's Servant, send Garura, give you the draw, banish the Garura, summon down Maximus, Maximus would send App Clone, and then any other monster that you would choose to, so either a second Garura if you wanted to, but you wouldn't be able to get another draw, or a Ferrijit, which gives you the benefit to draw and put a card back. Still search out your Schism, but the whole idea is you're still setting up 2 Darks in the grave, and then during your opponent's main phase, you get to activate the Shaddoll Schism, banish the App Clone as your Shaddoll monster, and then any Dark monster from your graveyard to then get you a Winder, which will then mean your opponent can only special on 1 monster, and you're going to be backing this Winder up with possibly a Regenesis Warrior, a Regenesis Sage, and then some of your Dogmatika cards that have already ripped away from their extra deck, meaning that they can't just go normal summon, Typhon, bounce. So yeah, that can really cause them a couple of issues, but it's also one of the cards, like I've mentioned before, that you can very easily side out rather than main decking it. So I've already shown you the 2 cards being the App Clone and the Winder. You could take these cards out if you wanted to. If you're not going to play Schism, these can very easily become any utility cards like an SP Little Knight. It can become a Ferrijit, which I'm currently not playing in the extra deck because I'm not going down that Ferrijit double draw route. But the idea is that you can utilize these should you wish. The other targets you're going to want to be sending off Nadir's Servant is, of course, going to be your Herald of the Art Light. You're going to want to max out on this card in the extra deck because you do have ways to trigger this multiple times. So Nadir's Servant will be one way of sending it, which searches out your White Relic. And then off the back of that, you could use the Herald of the Art Light to search out your Dogmatika Calamity. Activate the Dogmatika Calamity to send a second Herald from the extra deck to the graveyard to summon down your White Relic. Trigger the second Herald of the Art Light to then search you out your White Knight, which can be the 2500 monster in the hand to reveal for your Regenesis Archfiend, and you're just basically building your plays off. Or if you already have another Ritual monster, you search out the second Ritual spell, or if you already have the second Ritual spell, you can search out Alba Lazoa and then build on from there. The other cards you want to be sending will be your Elder Entity Ints, which will be your Aggressor, your Agitator to negate, You've got your Malong to negate a card on the field, Garura to give you a draw, your Tri-Brigade if you need to send a monster that has high enough attack to search you out something else, and then this can send your Garura. So this is another way of getting 2 darks to the grave as well. We've got Omega so that you can send this as a level 8 for your Ritual Summon of the White Knight through Dogmatic Calamity. But then this also gives you the ability to recycle some of these one-offs that you might want to utilize, mainly something along the Despian Lulu Walith. So Lulu Walith can be sent as it is your level 12 to summon out your Albalazoa. And off the back of that, this will also have an end phase effect that lets you special summon a spellcaster light monster from the deck whose attack equals its own defense. So you can go for a Fleur-de-Lis, which isn't going to be that effective for you. You kind of want to use that card as a hand trap-esque effect. But this can also get you into the Ecclesia, which in turn would search you out the Fleur-de-Lis. Or of course you can go to the Cartesia. And as long as you are not extra deck locked, the Cartesia can then quick fusion to go into any light or dark monster with the Grand Grignol. Itself with a light or dark monster to get into Grand Grignol. Grand Grignol can send from the deck to the grave or even the extra deck. But then the idea behind this one is whether you've gone through Lulu Walith or not, is if you've gone through it, you can play a second one, but I'm liking at this moment in time to play one Proskenion, because if your opponent summons from the extra deck, you can banish this out and then summon out a Proskenion to banish or revive one of your opponent's links, XYZs, synchros or fusions from their grave, or you would go into a Lulu Walith. And the Lulu Walith is if a card leaves the extra deck, etc. in the damage deck, you make all monsters you control gain 500, and then you can make all monsters, you gain 500, and then you get to negate the effects of a face-up card on the field. So it's up to you which one you want to go for. You either play 1 Proskenion and 1 Lulu Walith, or you play 2 Lulu Walith. Very simply, I couldn't find my second copy of Lulu Walith, and I do actually quite like Proskenion. And the final card is the 1 Typhon. Again, very easily, this can be a Proskenion if you need, a Lulu Walith if you want it to. And it's very rare that you're actually going to need to make Typhon, because if you summon down your Ecclesia and use this effect, you're locked out of the extra deck. If you want to play any of your ritual spell cards, you're going to lock yourself out of the extra deck, which is why being able to utilize something like a Grand Grignol or the Winterlock is going to be more useful for you during your opponent's turn rather than during your turn, which is what you're going to be seeing yourself do more times than not. So that is pretty much it for the entire profile. If you do have any questions, by all means, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm always happy to answer them where possible. I hope this is giving you a bit of a creative idea on your own build. I do like the idea of utilizing the ritual versions of Dogmatikas or the ritual monsters for them. It's one of these builds that, again, shout out to Kyron, kind of really helped me put this together. It's a version of the deck that I wanted to try out. And I'm not saying this is the best version. Like the versions that I'm currently showing you, like Mech Knights and the Dogmatikas, are more for nostalgia. These are like builds that you haven't been able to play for a long, long time. And you've picked up Regenesis because you like how they work and how they play, and you wanted to see what other versions you could play and dust off. Well, you can dust off your Dogmatikas, you can dust off your Mech Knights, which I've already shown you as well. So it's really kind of cool to kind of reinvigorate those particular type of decks. It will be more for a casual environment, but this can be very sticky for your opponent to deal with because you're completely controlling their extra deck, and that's when you can really start to strip their resources, as there are very few decks in the game right now that can play without their extra deck. Like, if you take away Mantis' extra deck, they're not really presenting much of a threat to you. Yes, in a Ryziel Mitsurugis, they will just flip and go for the main Mitsurugis, but then that's where you want to try and stop them getting into their Amu Makumo by utilizing your Sage to stop their ritual spell. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.